7 days a week. So with that, the next area is really what we do for the Iraqi security forces from the J4's perspective. There's a whole section of A&T and USFI that does the big heavy lifting of supporting the Iraqi forces each and every day. So the J4 has a small piece of that. And really the two areas that we operate in is foreign excess personal property and United States equipment to the Iraqis, or what we call USETI. So with that, the foreign excess personal property piece was established by Congress, congressional law, which is the 40 U.S.C., outlines specific use, particularly for Iraq, from DASD, from OSD in June of '05, and we've been using that authority since present. And what that does is it gives us the ability to take excess personal property and transfer it to the Iraqis. And that personal property is pretty much what we call CMGO property, which is contractor managed, government-owned property. So that's white trucks, that's reefer vans, that's the desk I'm sitting at, that's a bunch of different property that we have out there that's commercial and grade. We have a very distinct process we go through to determine whether it's excess or not. We start out 60 days out from the base closure, and we work through whether or not each of the different sites that we use or sites that we have out there, determine what is on that site from the contractor. We transfer it back into U.S. government control. We inventory it all. That comes up to the J4, and then we go through a 60-day process of vetting that property to make sure that it's all excess. So we make sure we fill all the requirements up first, and then I'll go through a little bit of that later on. Once that's all done, I sign the final FEP packages for that property, and then the Iraqi on the other side of the house signs for it at the site that is being transferred. We do that for each of the different sites that we transfer, as well as what we call tiered authority FEP. Tiered authority FEP is a process where if we have a capability that we're trying to transfer to the government of Iraq, maybe it's a generator or something of that nature, we can have the authority to transfer that one item, and it may not be allocated to a site, but it's going to a different place for a specific capability, and we do those as well. So with that, just kind of give you a rough order of magnitude. So far, we've had a fair market value of about $157 million worth of stuff in OIF1 that we've done. And in OIF2, in OND, we've done $247 million worth of property that we've transferred, and it's gone to various ministers. So Minister of Interior, Minister of Defense, other security forces, and other ministries. So has a fair share piece of it. Majority of it's going to Minister of Defense. For the USETI process, the United States equipment is only 3% of the overall equipping process for the government of Iraq for mission essential capability. And this ties into FMS and FMF processes that are already out there. And we have three authorities which we operate under, 516, 1234, and then the FEP process as well. Currently, we have 43,646 items on the items to transfer, and we're 58% complete doing that, and different percentages for each of the different authorities. So really now transition now to our mission for transitioning the university to U.S. Mission Iraq. On 31 December, we will transfer everything over for the enduring presence for and our strategic abilities to the mission here, so the Department of State. We have, right now, as we work hand in hand with the Department of State to make those transitions. It's a priority for General Austin to make sure we do this transition correctly. So that's Department of State, that's the OSCI, INL, and all the different sites that they're going to occupy in Iraq, and make sure that they're all functioning. that goes from basic life support to medical to maintenance of stuff that they have to do in order that we've been doing as U.S. forces here for the last years. In that right now today, as we're making the transitions, just as a point of reference, we've transferred 32,655 items to Department of State for the stand-up of their sites throughout Iraq. And there's more to come as well. Those are what we consider the critical pieces of equipment to do the transfers. Roughly $78 million worth of equipment. And with that, we will also have green equipment, or we call it green, which is DOD green, DOD military equipment that we'll be transferring to them. 219 line items that we say, different types of items that we'll be transferring as well. And those will be coming out of excess defense articles, sales from stocks, or loans from the U.S. government, from the Department of Defense to the Department of State. So with that, let me just kind of jump right into the reposter phase of our business. I'd like to kind of state up front that we started out at the beginning of Operation New Dawn with 80 sites. 94 sites. We're down to 48 sites today, and we have 7 that will be shutting down in the month of August. So we've been closing sites down as we've been throughout this last year, which has been driving pretty much how our equipment flows out and how everything flows is based on our site closures. And we have a lot of people that help us with this process. We have the 310th Expeditionary Sustainment Command, the 1st Theater Sustainment Command, Defense Logistics Agency, Army Materiel Command, and the 402nd Army Field Support Brigade. All those people help us get through all the positioning that we need to do to make sure we reposture all our forces. So what does that mean? So roughly, you're looking. We have currently remaining is about 1 million items left. And what we've done so far since September is 1.7 million items. We've already been departed in the area, or we have what we call theft over to the Iraqis. And there's different categories of that property, and we track all that down. And we do that through our redistribution property assistance teams. We call them as RPAT throughout 402nd run. Where does the equipment go? It goes to the Iraqis, part of the theft process. It also goes to the National Association of State Agencies for surplus property. And we also transfer stuff throughout the CENTCOM AOR, particularly Afghanistan, Djibouti, Bahrain, and other areas that they give us the priority list. We have a very defined process for all that redistribution process works, and it's very methodical in nature and how we put it all into a computer system, and it spits out where all that property needs to go. With that, I'll just kind of leave it open for questions now.
Great, sir. Thank you. Before we begin questions, do we have anyone else joining the line?
I joined Michael Hoffman with Defense News.
Michael Hoffman. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and this is Phil Ewing with DoD Buzz.
I'm sorry?
Phil Ewing with DoD Buzz.
Okay, thank you.
And this is Chris Carroll with Stars and Stripes.
Carroll, Stars and Stripes. Thank you so much.
Charles Morrison, the Heritage Foundation.
Okay. Freddie, thank you. With that, we begin our question and answer portion. Dale Kissinger, did you have a question?
I do. Thank you very much, General. Dale Kissinger from MilitaryAvenue.com. Recently, Admiral Mullen condemned interference from Iran in Iraq, and I was wondering if that's having any impact on transfer of equipment. Are there any things that are impacting how we're doing it?
No, not at the time. I mean, it's not interfering with our everyday processes that we do. I mean, it's a concern, as Admiral Mullen mentioned in his interview and process. On the everyday basis, we still operate day in and day out. Force protection is our number one priority here, is to make sure that we protect our troops and our contractors each and every day. So
it's not having any impact there. Thank you very much, sir.
Gail Harris, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. General, thank you for your time. There were reports in the press today that the Iraqi government is finally taking the first step and requesting that the U.S. keep some troops behind. As complex as the logistics process is, I would suspect you probably have been looking at some alternative plans. But how challenging is this going to be if they make a decision at the last minute that they want to retain some U.S. troops?
Right now, we are driving at the current plan, which is going to zero based on the agreements that we currently have. Any other agreements that come about are really up to the government of Iraq and the United States government, the political world, and then we will told what we will do in that process. This is a matter of physics, though. As we get further along the path of what we do, it gets harder and harder in that process. There is a momentum that starts in the process as we start closing sites down, that you start ending contracts and you start moving property in and out of and troops and contractors out of Iraq. So as time goes on, it becomes much harder for us to work options.
Thank you.
Chuck Sims, did you have a question?
I did. Good evening, General. Chuck Simmons from America's North Shore Journal. When we first moved into Iraq, there were problems with transporting troops through Turkey, and now that we're moving out of Iraq, is Kuwait the only exit, or are we able to utilize routes through Turkey and Jordan to kind of make things a little bit easier on the Kuwaitis?
Well, I'm actually was part of the 4th Infantry Division, the floating flotilla that didn't get through Turkey during that period of time, so I know that well from 2003 and 2004. So right now, we have no plans to send things back through Turkey, although Turkey does support us a lot. We send fuel and other goods through Turkey that come in from Turkey to Iraq, and then their empty trucks go back through there. But right now, we don't have a lot of pushing of. We have sent stuff, what we call the end-to-end process, through Turkey from commercial-type items that have left Iraq to go to Afghanistan. And that was probably 6, 7, 8 months ago, probably longer than that, probably a year in that process. But we do have a lot of other alternatives as we go through. We actually ship things to the port of Qasr down in Iraq, as well as out of Kuwait, and we do send some things to Jordan, but the majority of our stuff still goes through Kuwait.
Thank you.
And we had someone on the line from Al Jazeera English. I'm sorry, I missed your name. Did you have a question?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem. AR News, did you have a question?
I'm good, thanks.
Carlo from AOL Defense, did you have a question?
I did. General, just wanted to follow up on the question regarding the possible change or the possible keeping of U.S. troops in Iraq. I know you said you're kind of moving on course as, with the regular withdrawal plan, but there were some comments made earlier this month on the Hill by Mr. Estevez saying that there were also a number of tripwires that were in place, and once those tripwires were hit, then the logistics chain could sort of get ramped back up to support any troop levels. Can you give me an idea of what some of those tripwires are that Mr. Estevez was talking about?
I don't have any specific knowledge of what Mr. Estevez was on those tripwires. I mean, as we know exactly what our plan is as we draw down and the sites that we're closing and the sequencing we do as we go through that, as we go through from now until December 31st, and as we move soldiers, sailor airmen, Marine out of country, as well as the equipment. And as we close those sites, I mean, those are the areas that we will lose capability at that point in time. So as the time goes on, you know, it's hard to say, okay, what are you actually going to lose or gain out of the process. So number one is we don't know what the end state is, because we have no official requirements right now, and so until the Iraqis do that formalized ask, and our government makes a determination of what they want to do, then we'll figure that out from our end at that point in time. Over.
Okay, General, just a quick follow-up then. Are there any of those sites or locations that you've sort of maybe pre-identified that if the word does come down, you will need these sites to be active, regardless of what the troop level agreement may be? And as you kind of rack and stack those closures, have you put those locations sort of on the back end, closing them last, just in case, to give the Iraqis more time?
No, we haven't. I mean, we're actually on a glide path based on drawing everything to zero, and that's our primary goal right now, because that's the orders we've been given. So we're driving towards that end state right now.
Thank you, sir.
Michael Hoffman, did you have a question?
Yes, I did. I was interested in talking about logistics for the Iraqis. When I was out there almost about a year ago now, a big issue was really trying to stand up the logistics capabilities for the Iraqis to take over. I'm wondering where that is in terms of training up that capability and really setting them up on for that transition going forward.
That's really not my area of expertise. I deal with it tangentially a little bit about transferring equipment to them as far as that process goes.
Okay.
Mr. Oath from A&T, assist and train, advise and train area that's under Lieutenant General Farragut, works that area, they call it cell, that works that piece day in and day out as far as they do. I mean, they monitor what they do as part of the each and every day. I mean, it's monitored, it's tracked as far as where they're at in their processes. I will tell you, that they do support themselves. We don't support them right now, so they are supporting themselves through the programs that we currently have, and operate in the field each and every day. Over.
Okay. Just a quick follow-up to that. Just in terms of the transfer of the equipment that you were talking about, have you seen any improvements in terms of when that handoff is done, the accountability for that equipment, and the movement into some of the depots in kind of in a more smooth transition period? Some of the equipment, particularly in the USETI program, goes into the depot, the General Supply Depot at Taji. Most of the other stuff on a site is transferred at the site and then does not go anywhere that we know. I mean, it's transferred to them as part of the operating location, a base. So you usually turn it over to an Army unit, Air Force unit, Navy unit, and they actually are operating out of those sites. So that's the containerized housing units, the generating, the air conditioning units, all the things that operate out of those locations. So those pretty much stay at those locations. They sign for the property. We do a very formalized process of doing a joint inventory between the United States and the Iraqis. Depending on the size of the location, it could take a couple of weeks in order to get that done. And then once they're done, they sign for the property. We take a copy of it and we file it over. Have they transferred over to a computer-based filing system, or is it still a paper-based system that they have had been operating with? You're talking about at Taji? Yeah, at Taji. Or I am not sure which one, if they're using the IAM program, Iraqi, I can't remember what IAM stands for, but, they do have the IAM program, but I'm not sure if it's up and running for, as they enter up to it or not, over.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Phil from DoD Buzz, did you have a question?
Yes. Thank you for your time, General. I wanted to ask about how billing and receipts and payments work as a part of this. Are the gear that you're transferring, including your desk that you mentioned and your white trucks and other pieces of equipment, basically, being given to the Iraqis and then they'll pay for it later, or are they getting it for free, or how does the accounting aspect of this process work?
They get it for free. We do an analysis, as I tried to explain a little earlier in the process, is we do it to make sure that it's excess to the United States government. We do a business case analysis on every packet that we do, line item by line item, to determine whether or not it's cost advantage for us to take the items home, or whether or not just it's better off for us to leave it here. Most of the stuff that we have has been used for 7+ years. And so when you're talking power generation, it's a 220 generator, not necessarily usable in the United States, but it's got 7 years of use on it. So therefore, same with the containerized housing units, to transport it and do all those things. To de-scope the contracts would cost us more money than actually just giving it to them as we do right now.
Yes, sir. Thank you. If I could just ask one quick follow-up. Can you tell us how you prioritize what gear goes by ship and what you fly out, if indeed you're flying anything out?
I don't necessarily make those priorities. The U.S. Central Command does. They give us a list of the requirements that need to be sourced outside of Iraq. Whether or not it needs to be flown or not is up to that process. So primarily, if it's going to Afghanistan, usually it'll fly. If it's got an urgent need requirement for it. If there's no urgent need for it, then it'll go by surface over.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Chris Carroll from Stars and Stripes, do you have a question?
Yes, thanks. Thank you, General. Wanted to jump back to the dollar values that you mentioned in your opening statement. You said 157 million and 247 million. Does that represent what has already been transferred? And what's the difference between those two numbers, and how much is yet to be transferred in dollar values?
I'll try and give you a dollar value right now on what has to be transferred at the end, because we're still doing, I call lateral transfers to like Department of State and other requirements as we go through that. So it's not all property will be, when we go through the process of closing a site down, as we go towards the end, we make a determination of each and every one of those sites as we go down each site and close them, what happens to that property. So we don't put a dollar value on any of that stuff until the point in time that we have to, about 60 days out, when we do the final paperwork on it. The first number I gave, one point, still there? We got interference. The first number I gave you, the 157, was OIF, so that's what's been done before Operation New Dawn. The 247 million fair market value has been done since Operation New Dawn, which is 1 September.
Thank you. Thanks.
Charles Morrison, did you have a question?
No, thank you, ma'am. I'm good.
Okay, we'll go back around the horn. Dale, did you have an additional question, follow-up?
Yes, sir. General, can you put a cost figure on the transportation of returning equipment to the U.S. or to other commands?
No, I don't really track how much it costs. It has to go. So we use organic trucks we have here already on contract. Both the contracts we have here Iraq, and also the first theater sustaining has forward out of Kuwait and all stuff out. And I don't know how much all that. There's quite a bit of movements of stuff going back and forth when you look at all the amount of equipment that has to go over.
Okay, thank you very much.
Gail Harris, did you have a follow-up question?
No, I didn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Chuck Simmons, did you have a follow-up question?
Yes, I did. General, I've read several really good articles on what the United States does before it turns a site over to the Iraqis, the different evaluations and cleanup processes. What do the Iraqis do before they accept a site? Do they have an evaluation process? How does it work on their side?
That's really our J7 General Donahue works the actual site closure process. I do the equipping piece of the process. He does the environmental and the actual physical property.
Okay, well then speak to how the Iraqis handle equipment transfer.
They account for it all. They look at it. They actually inspect it as they go through the process. We make sure that everything is in workable order when we turn it over. We want to turn over good functioning property to the Iraqis as we turn everything over to them. So they go through that process. We make adjustments if there's any adjustments to be made on the paperwork. And that's resubmitted back up to us for signature. We readjust the quantities if there's a quantity change. That includes decreases as well as increases. They will actually tell us there's actually one more air conditioner that you missed over on this side of the building, and as we go through the inventory, and we'll add that item, and it could be just the opposite as time, because these packets are done 60 days out. Things do move around a little bit on each of the different locations. So
do they ever
do a
reject
very thorough
equipment?
job of. Say again?
Yes, sir. Do they ever reject equipment?
I have not experienced them rejecting any equipment that I can think of over.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Carlo from AOL Defense, did you have additional questions?
I did. General, I just wanted to follow up on two things. The first point, sir, you talked about some of the green material coming out, the DoD-specific type equipment that's being stepped over or transferred to other AOs. With that equipment, how much of that is not vehicles but actual weapons, tanks, armored personnel carriers, those sorts of things, and even artillery pieces, that sort of thing? How much of that stuff has been stepped over to the Iraqis?
We don't theft combat equipment or green equipment over.
Okay.
So we use 516 excess defense articles or 1234 authorities. 1234 authorities and I'm talking primarily the USETI program that we currently use now. 1234 is non-excess items, particularly on that are up armored Humvees that we have transferred, 50 cal machine guns, some 40-ton low boys and items like that. About 1,300 or so items in that process. The 516 excess defense articles, there's other items over.
Okay. And those are separate from what from the numbers and the quantities you gave earlier?
Right, I've got the numbers here. Hang on one second. And I'll get you those numbers afterwards. I got to find a little piece of paper I had.
Sure. No problem, sir. And I guess the other question I had was in terms of the stuff that's being moved over to Afghanistan. You said some of that material was in response to urgent operational needs. Can you go into detail about that, about what some of that equipment is, and go from there?
Well, when we started doing the build up into Afghanistan, primarily MRAPs, anything that we came off of, and it's really what we call the RDOF 1 process in last year, June timeframe, as we were coming off those critical pieces of equipment. That's now. Right now, as we transfer primarily some radio equipment back and forth, fire trucks are really important as we're starting to build up those sites in Afghanistan. So we're coming off that type of property. So it varies the different types of equipment that they need. They give that, and we follow what they call a CENTCOM priority list of what the things that they want us to send.
Okay. All right. Thanks, sir.
And Michael Hoffman, did you have additional follow-up?
No, I'm okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Phil from DoD Buzz, did you have a follow-up question?
No, thanks.
Chris Carroll, did you have a follow-up? Thank you. And did anyone else have any additional questions?
Chuck, I've got one.
Okay.
General, when we transfer equipment to the Iraqis, do we transfer it to them at the existing location for the equipment? Do we transport it to a location where they accept it? Or do they do the transporting after acceptance?
Almost all the property is at the location transfer. We do have some equipment that comes in through some sites that goes to Taj. Very small percentage of the property does that, and that's really we're just trying to get the outlying excess property that's out there, primarily green type 516 equipment that we have to do. But almost all the base equipment stays at the location. So the majority of the things that we transfer stay at the site that we're turning over to Iraq.
Thank you.
If that's all of our questions.
This is Todd Lopez with Army News Service. Hey, good morning, General, or good afternoon, sir. Can you, you've said a couple things like generators and chews and those kind of things. Can you just give a rundown of a list of the types of things, equipment, property that's being transferred to the Iraqis?
Sure. We have a couple of different categories that we use, and I have some different authorities that go with foreign excess personal property as we go through that. What we call, a little bit of this is what we call fob in a box, forward operating base in a box. And that goes, for example, that's the chews, that's T-walls that we have, Jersey barriers, water and fuel tanks, air conditioning units, generators, refrigerators, freezers, porta-johns, beds and mattresses, office equipment, tents, guard shacks, dining facility equipment and dining facilities that we have that are out there, washers and dryers. I mean, those types of things that are at every one of our sites that we have and operate out of. All that pretty much stays. Then we have the other category of stuff that we have, which we have to go really and look at the priority systems that we have, which are forklifts, fire department stuff, all the other large trucks, non-tactical vehicles. So you're talking semi-trucks, all those things that we operate each every day to sustain inside of the house. Those items then are also eligible for PEP at the end, but we have to go for additional authorities through RSENT and then get approval for those.
Thanks.
And again, are there any additional questions? Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, for your great questions and participation. We'll now turn the floor back over to Major General Richardson. Sir, if you have any closing remarks or statements you'd like to make.
Yeah, just to go back to the question that was asked, I didn't have the answer. I found my numbers here for the 516 and 1234 and the numbers for the PEP side of the house that we're going to do. For 516 items for USETI, there's 19,588 items that are required to be transferred, and we're 63% complete with that piece of it. For the 1234 non-defense or for the non-excess items for the Department of Defense, there are 1,363 of those items, and we're about 90% complete with those. For the foreign excess personal property items, there's 22,695 of those items, and we're roughly 51.5% complete with that. Which gives you an overall percentage of right around 58%.
All right, sir. This is Carl Munoz again with AOL Defense, just to make sure I have that right. You said on the first number was 19,563% done. The second number was 1,300, and that's 90% done. And then overall, it's about 58% done with the transfers on the green side. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thanks, sir.
Thank you, sir. And if you had any additional remarks or statements you'd like to make?
No, I just thank you everyone for dialing in the morning, evening time here, so it's just about supper time for us. Thank you for taking time to understand how we do our business, and I just want everybody to understand the fact that we have a very deliberate process here of how we get going to close out what we've been doing here for the last several years. Making sure that we're good stewards of the American taxpayer's dollar. That's very important to us, important to me since I pay taxes as well. Just want to make sure that we have good accountability and we have audible trails of where all the equipment's going. So those are all the things that are on our minds as we go through this process. Thanks, and y'all have a good week.
Thank you, sir. And thank you again to everyone for taking your time out to participate. There will be an audio file and transcript of this call. I will forward this information to all participants once it is available. Thank you again, and this ends our roundtable.